coming to Thank you for coming to the August GDDA membership meeting. Yeah, it's August. I'm finding that hard to believe. All right, let's go and kick things off with a few announcements. The KSU Game Jam is going to be this month from August 26th to the 28th. So, as far as where you go to sign to register, I don't use a mic.
You got this.
As far as where to register, we do not have information on that just yet, so keep an ear out. We'll post when we get information. Yeah?
Are you with us at the same time as the Limdari game yet?
No. Blue Mammoth Brawlhalla tournament is going to be in November 17th to the 19th. They need volunteers, so if you want to volunteer, please shoot an email to Matt Woomer at Blue Mammoth Games, and he'll try it, and we'll see where we go from there. SiegeCon is October 7th through the 9th. The prices will rise after August 15th, so please go ahead and get you registered so you don't have to pay I don't know, what's a good term to use to make some joke.
Markup.
There we go, giant markup.
If you guys know that you're going for sure, definitely sign up. It's $35 for students, so that goes for all y'all. Siege is a good time. If you haven't gone, definitely check it out.
Or if you want, you can volunteer.
But you don't.
So tonight was supposed to be to the volunteer meeting, right? So we're gonna have some more information.
I was about to bring that up.
Oh, it's in the announcements. What's up?
Yeah. So after this meeting, there will be a Siege volunteer meeting.
Yeah, so hang around after the panel if you guys are interested in volunteering. Volunteering is a really awesome way to get into Siege. You can usually get in for free if you volunteer for enough hours, and it's a lot of fun. You get to meet a whole bunch of cool people and do a lot of cool stuff behind the scenes.
Well, then they try, if the panels you want to go to, they try and work around your...
Yeah, that's true. So you don't really get to miss out on what you want to see. You actually get to attend the panels that you wanted to see anyways and help us out, help us run the show.
The economic impact surveys have been sent out. If you can, please fill those out, and if you feel like your studio has not gotten one and want one, please let us know and we'll get you one so you can fill it out. The IGDA Studio Smackdown is coming up. For the games that are going to be at Smackdown, there'll be 3v3 Rocket League for teams, and then for solo, it'll be Mario Kart 8. So have fun, throw blue shells, and try to get that goal. Sign-ups for Studio Smackdown will start next week. August 25th will be the launch meeting with the Middle South chapter of the GDDA at Peachtree Center's food court. If you want to attend, go and meet us there. We'll have a lot of fun discussing GDDA stuff. Woo. And finally, our next meeting is going to be tentatively at Georgia Tech discussing how to make AR games.
We'll have more details on that when it's solidified. Yeah.
Second Tuesday of September.
So with that, let's move it on to our panelists. We'll let Abby, who's our moderator, introduce our panelists, and we'll get this going.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming out and braving Atlanta traffic tonight, because it's Atlanta traffic and it sucks. So tonight we're going to be talking about networking and team building and trauma, or rather the trauma just kind of happens sometimes. I know some of you, but if not, I'm Abby Joslin. I'm a business coach here in Atlanta. I specialize in working with people who have creative startups or tech startups kind of in their first few years. I like talking business, so corner me and talk about business because that's fun. And I'm just going to ask everyone to kind of introduce themselves and tell me what your current favorite game is. And who you are.
Remember that the microphone is for our live stream, not for amplifying this room. If you can't hear, you might want to move up front. A lot of chairs up front, and they're closer to the pieces.
And swallow the mic.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I work for Tripwire Interactive as a QA analyst, and I also do some user experience for them as well. And my current favorite game is World of Warcraft, and I should be playing Legion right now.
Hello everyone, my name is Gabriel Mahelli. I'm the PR specialist at High Res Studios. I've been there since about 2011, so about 5 years. And I want to say my current game right now is Witcher 3, but I just got No Man's Sky today, so I might start playing that too. So.
Hello everyone, my name is Darren. I just graduated from Kennesaw this past May. I'm going to be pursuing my master's in computer science this fall, and I'm just finishing up an internship at Virtually Better, where I work with phobia software for virtual reality. I would say my favorite game right now, not a new one, it's Battlefield 1942, and I'm really looking forward to Battlefield 1.
My name is Brett Briscoe. I'm just an average guy that works in consulting and things like that, but I do build games in my free time. I guess my claim to fame is the game Default Dan. So currently the game I like to play a lot is just Hearthstone. It's my type of game.
We're going to have a really great game of Pass the Mic going all tonight. So networking is one of those things that we all talk about having to do, and it is sort of painful, and sometimes people kind of like it if you're lucky and happen to really like talking to people. But I'm just going to start this with, I would love to know what some of your favorite tips and tricks and ways that you get the most out of networking at big events are, because I know that we've got game jams coming up, we've got Siege coming up, and what do you do when you're meeting a lot of people all at the same time? I mean, I know that some of the things that I like to do are, the back of business cards. I love writing notes on those because I don't remember who people are or what they look like. I forget that 2 seconds after I meet them, even if I take a picture. And I also like doing canned responses in Gmail so that I just can go back to my hotel room, pop one of those in an email, and just customize it. But I mean, yeah, how do you guys handle forgetting people and making the most of your conversations with folks? So. You look like you have something to say.
I always have something to say. So I usually do those tricks. I absolutely love them. Seriously, send out an email. I've lost some good contacts because they didn't remember who I was because I didn't email them fast enough. So yes, email them immediately. I like Pokemon Go too.
It's also a great way to meet people.
It is a great way to meet people. But another good way, because I know a lot of you are students, so the biggest thing for you guys and recently me before I got my job at Tripwire is how do I get people to remember me? Something that I like to always do, which is my biggest tip, is have an actual meaningful conversation. Don't have the basic oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a QA analyst. Oh, that's nice. Where do you work? Blah, 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 blah.
I'm live streaming, I'm sorry.
Speaking of QA, they're testing our live stream.
QA. But anyway, so a good way to break that and kind of really draw attention to yourself is to ask weird questions that aren't normally asked. For example, one of my favorites to ask people that I've met, I use this at GDC. What do you prefer, zombies or aliens? It's not a question that you're expecting, so it kind of takes them off guard and they actually kind of have to think about it, which will ultimately help you be more memorable. So that's my biggest tip.
What's the best answer you've ever gotten to that?
That's a good question. I got a lot of interesting ones. I think my favorite response was aliens, because they could take the zombies off the earth and probe them and turn them into their own minions.
That's respectable.
Yeah.
Traumatized zombies.
So for me, I think that a lot of what you both said makes a lot of sense. My biggest thing is always remember, if you have a business card, just always remember to take them with you. There's been a couple events that I've gone to where I'll get to the event and I'll be like, oh no, I didn't bring enough business cards, or I didn't bring any, and then it's just really weird, and you'll be getting a lot of business cards, but then you're not really getting your information in the hands of the people that you want to get it in. So always remember to take a business card, and you can customize it, make it look more memorable in a way that you can. But I would say just to try to prioritize, because a lot of times, depending on what event you're at, there's going to be a lot of people. And if you know specific people that you want to get in touch with, like if you go to an event knowing that there's going to be someone, like if you're an audio person, you want to talk to the audio guru there, just make sure you talk to them first and don't get too caught up catching up with everyone else so that you miss them when they leave. So prioritize your targets and don't forget your business cards.
Actually, I have a follow-on question to that. What are your favorite ways to actually politely hand somebody a business card so it's not just like an awkward exchange of, oh, sure,
Yeah.
that's my favorite.
Yeah, I feel like there's usually a point in the conversation where it'll kind of come up organically. Definitely it might not be the best to kind of go into it with like your hand extended like that, but maybe after you talked a little bit and shared interests and you're like, hey, let's talk again, let's catch up or something like that. Usually it's like to end the conversation, especially if you're talking to someone and then someone else comes up and then like that person's going to be, you can tell they're going to be busy. Just make sure that you ended up like, hey, take your time, we'll catch up later, here's my card, get in touch with me when you can. And then definitely follow up afterwards. Make sure you send emails. Like usually when I come away from events, I'll have a stack of like business cards that I've collected, and you want to remember to go through and as soon as possible, just go through and email each of those people. Like don't let it slip by, because the longer you take to get back to them, the less they'll kind of remember the impact that you had on them.
And the longer your email has to be. You can get away with a really short email if it's like the night of.
That's true.
3 days later, you feel like you have to write a letter.
Yeah, this is what I've been up to. So yeah.
One of the tricks I use for remembering people who give me business cards is just really simple. All you have to do is look at the business card right after they give it to you. It also makes you look like you're a lot more interested in what they have to offer for you. And then I'll put it in my left pocket because I always check my left pocket before I put laundry in. Yeah, and then I'll remember to contact them. Another thing I'd like to add is when you're speaking with people that you've never met before and you guys are sort of talking about what you do or what skills you have, do not lie. Like if they ask you what source control is or experience that you have with source control, don't say that you have experience with it, because then you'll get yourself into a corner and a conversation that you know nothing about, and that can be really embarrassing, and they'll probably not be too interested in talking to you after that, I guess. That's kind of all I have on that.
So I see how this is going to go. You're going to give all the good answers, and I'm going to have nothing to say here. It's very true. So I would also kind of approach it a different way as well, because I always get asked this question when I do some of the panels and stuff from the guys out there trying to get your game out there. When you're trying to meet some of these people, whether it's a YouTube person or some type of PR person that may be able to help you kind of get into certain things. And to Gabe's point, one of the most important things when you're at these conventions, check the schedule. So if you want to know that, hey, I want to meet, Smosh or one of these guys, make sure you know where they're going to be signing, things like that, because you can definitely go to a couple of the different signings. If you're wearing a shirt or whatever that has your game, you can kind of bring it up, things like that. That's actually been really helpful for me, and I've gotten a lot of the different YouTubers to kind of like talk about my game and actually be able to interact with them. So that's been one of the things that I've done is, again, just make sure you know, and then if they do contact you, make sure you're emailing them back, because they have tons of people contacting them. So once you get that stream going, you don't want to lose it.
Oh, this is going to be fun. You're going to get some exercise tonight. I mean,
All that pizza.
well, we do feed everyone a lot of pizza here. One other thing to keep in mind, too, is make sure that you have a decent email signature with your contact information, with, if you have something in particular that you're really proud of, a website, a portfolio, have an email signature, because if nothing else, if that gets forwarded, it says, oh, who is this random dude? It's not just, oh, yeah, by Abby, which is kind of nice. So I would love to hear some of your favorite crash and burn and like utterly bridge-destroying networking stories that you guys have. Like what are some of the worst possible things that you've run into that you don't ever want to see, or that you would ever just say, I am not ever even going to talk to this person about a job because this experience was so rotten. Like, yeah, we're going to start. Yeah, sir. You're still in therapy. I need a second for some deep breath, breathing.
Takes a while to recover.
It really does.
So I think for me, one of the most frustrating things is when you get too cocky, because a lot of times the conversation is you want to talk to me because you want like a job from me, for example, and you come up to me and you start talking like all about yourself, which you want to do, but at the same time, if you really want to impress me, you'll let me talk about myself, which is true for pretty much everyone because everyone secretly wants to talk about themselves, me not so secretly. But it's true, like even subconsciously, like we want to talk about ourselves. So a great way to like do conversations is like ask, like I said earlier with the weird question, is it works because you're asking them something, you want to get their mind, and then you don't really talk about yourself until they ask. And it kind of lets them like talk about whatever they want, and then they're like, I like this guy. I got to talk about whatever I wanted. And so like if you come up to me and you don't let me talk, it gets kind of frustrating. And then another big crash and burn thing is if I try to schedule something with you, like coffee. There's been a couple people who wanted to like get coffee and get some tips before, and then they forget, and I'm stuck at this coffee shop alone.
With tiny violins playing.
Yeah, with my little tiny violin. So make sure when you schedule something with someone, show up. Please show up. And then another big thing for me, last one I promise, make sure you email people back. This is like a personal story. I lost a couple job opportunities because I did not check my LinkedIn often enough. So check your LinkedIn, and I recommend checking your email 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, night. You never know what's going to pop up.
I guess my answer might be a little bit weird. I feel like it might just be that I've just mentally put myself into a way of thinking where I feel like most of my business interactions are pretty positive. I'm just used to kind of like, if people are hard to deal with, I'm like, oh, they're just hard to deal with. Like, I'm not really like ever really that upset. But I will say with like some community interactions, like if you're, like I've been to, a couple conventions, as I mentioned, but like sometimes you'll be hanging out, you'll be talking to fans, and then someone will come up to you and they'll want to like learn about you and your game, and then they'll just like go on a tangent where like they start telling you about everything that's like wrong with your game and like why they don't like it, and then why did you kill tribes, and and it just kind of like you're like, oh no, I'm in this conversation and I can't get out in an amicable way. How? So yeah, that's kind of awkward. Like I would say if you're trying to like make contacts, and at the end of the day, one of the rules that I've always seen that works really well with people in general, and especially in like the business world, is that you achieve more and you get more out of people if you're nicer to them. So even if you have some qualms with someone, you don't think that they did the best job with their game, or you think the matchmaking is all jacked up, just like, you don't have to like, lie to them or sugarcoat it too much, but just like talk to them in a way that's like respectful, and like, get your ideas out in a way that like, you're still having a conversation. Just treat people like people, and they'll remember you and they'll want to talk to you more, which will open up more opportunities. So I guess it's kind of a basic thing, but just don't be an asshole.
I don't really have any crash and burn networking stories, but I do have a pretty funny one that happened at Siege last year. And if my friend was watching, he's going to crack up when he hears this, but because nobody knows. There's a Brawlhalla station set up, a lot of people playing, and we had a station close by showing off one of our Game Jam games. And as we were packing up, he was unplugging his charger, and he accidentally unplugged the Brawlhalla game. And everyone was really upset, to say the least, and they looked at him because he was by the outlet. And yeah, he just lied. He said he didn't do it, and then we left. So that's all we have.
So one of the big things that I've seen when I go to conventions and stuff is when you approach somebody, kind of know what you're going to say. So there's a lot of times you'll get to talking to somebody and you can tell that they really don't know what they're going to, like what they want to talk about. They're just kind of mumbling and continue to go on. So one of the things is definitely know what you're going to say, which kind of leads into also, if you're trying to talk about yourself, sell yourself, you should know like a little elevator pitch, whether it's just a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever that is, but definitely make sure that you know something small so that you can at least open up with. because if not, then it'll be this really awkward situation where you're not sure if the conversation's ended or not, because they just kind of keep going on. So that's definitely one of the things that I would say crash and burns a lot with people.
Well, and that's a great point too, because the thing with pitches like that is seriously sit down, jot down some notes in front of you, and then stand in front of a mirror and time yourself talking, because you will be amazed at how much time you can fill saying absolutely nothing whatsoever. But if you actually have a little timer going off and beeping, you say, oh, okay, maybe I should start with, okay, my name is so-and-so, I do this, this, and this, I love doing this, and I'm looking for this. What about you? Or something like that, but time yourself and really practice it. By the end of the weekend, you will be tripping over your own tongue because it will be rolling off of it so frequently, and you'll say, oh my God, what did I just say 2 seconds ago, because I've said this so many times. But it really it will make you look so much better and more polished and more professional if you aren't just talking to fill space and hoping that some magical keywords fly out of your mouth that will somehow get you the perfect job in game design because you said the magical words or the magical coding language or something, and it just happens to be the right person, because that never works. And you just look kind of like a twit, which is also not ideal when you're trying to sell yourself professionally. And I also like to think of networking as relationship building, which really ties in well, because people keep talking about, just be nice, don't be a dick, and just treat people with consideration, and don't waste their time, just be nice to people. But that's because networking really is about getting to know people. Can they help you right now? Hey, Sarah, can you get me a taco right now? She might say yes, or she might say no. But if I offer her a taco, she will remember me fondly, and later on, when she does have tacos, I might get a taco out of this. Thank you. Do you want to go to that place on Buford for tacos? Okay. So that's like relationship building in a nutshell. I mean, just because somebody can help you doesn't mean that they have to or that they even should. It just means get to know somebody. Maybe you can help them. Maybe they can help you. And it's also sort of fun to try to figure out I turn networking into a game as much as I can. I try to think, okay, how can I help this person? Or is there somebody that I know that this person should talk to? Or just a company that I'm aware of that I don't know anybody, but they should go check out to see what they're into. That's helpful. And that's the kind of thing that really helps build those relationships. But kind of on that front, how do you guys get, when you guys are relationship building and looking for stuff, how do you get the most out of those relationships when you know somebody and you want something out of them? How do you do that without being, hey, give me all your tacos? Because I know you like tacos. You probably have tacos. And tacos are the theme for the evening.
Tacos are always the theme for the evening when it's me. But let's start on the other end. Are you ready?
I'm ready on this end.
Okay.
Now that we're not talking about
Yeah, so with this one, I mean, one of the biggest things they kind of point out especially is, Georgia is a growing community with game developers. So when kind of saying that, the community is fairly small. So there's a couple big shops that are out there with a lot of people, but you see the same people all the time. Whether it's at Siege, MomoCon, DragonCon, any of the game jams, you see these guys over and over and over. So one of the big things definitely is you don't want to burn those bridges with those guys. So I know personally I've met many people doing 7 or 8 different game jams and then mentoring a few more. So I know whenever I'm thinking of a new game idea or anything like that, it's all right, I'm going to go contact these 6 people that I worked with on one of these jams, And some of these guys end up being people that you worked with, and now they're working at companies like Hi-Rez, or they're guys like Burton, who I met at one of the jams, who worked at Hi-Rez, but now is doing his own thing with the VR stuff. So there's definitely a lot of really cool guys out there, and really by networking and just meeting, especially at jams and stuff, make sure you're keeping in contact with them, because you never know where that one person's going to kind of really help you get that next position or whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, I would say if you are specifically trying to get something out of one of your relationships, best thing to do is just be upfront. I know a really popular thing to do is to take your business associates or any relationship that you have with somebody, go out to lunch. It relieves the pressure, and you can kind of talk about anything, and then maybe towards the end, I would definitely bring it up towards the end, because if you run into an awkward moment, then you're going to have to sit through your food in that awkward moment. So yeah, relieve the pressure by getting some food or tacos for people. And yeah, just be upfront, be honest. Honesty is one of the best ways to maintain relationships in my experience, and that's all I got on that.
Yeah, this will kind of be echoing a lot of what you just said, but in my own experiences dealing with managing relationships with like journalists, and then you got YouTubers and influencers and the like, it's always better, I think, to just to be straightforward and to kind of like consider their position. So like if everyone wants a popular YouTuber to make a video about their game, and like if you just come off like, hey man, you're really cool, make this video about my game, and then like the next week you're like, hey man, make another video, and it's like, make another video, and like the only time that this person like knows that you interact with them is when you're asking for things. So just kind of be like, think of it as like, how would you talk to like your friend? Like you actually like, think about what might be going on in their lives and keep up with them. And I guess this goes into like a bit of another topic, but like continuous communication is really important. With high-res studios, it's pretty easy because a lot of our games are ongoing games. There's always updates happening, and I can always like reach out and be like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but here's this new thing in the game, and here's some code so you can try it out. Got you on my mind, love you, bye, and that sort of thing. So I'm always talking to them and trying to stay relevant and keeping in touch, but also just like if they, if you want to get one of them to make a movie, or not a movie, but a video, movie would be great too, a video about your game, kind of like think about how it can also be beneficial to them. So we actually, at one point we worked with this one guy, his name's Sunday. He's a YouTuber that mostly does Minecraft stuff, but he happened to stumble across one of our newer games, Paladins, kind of just like by chance, and it got a whole bunch of views. And so we reached out to him, and we're like, hey man, would you be interested in maybe doing something like this again? He's like, potentially, I really liked the game, it was really fun, and but I also have this side business I do. Like he runs this thing called 99 Lives, where it's like this kind of like game-oriented, I guess, like music. It's just basically like it's like a music album that's like mostly centered around games, which I guess works perfectly for him because he's mostly dealing with Minecraft players and gamers. But basically what we did is we did like a special promotion where if you downloaded his newest album, you actually got a free code for like our game, and like he promoted it on his end and we promoted on our end, and everyone kind of like won, and stuff like that, where like you're like, hey, this guy might have this other thing that he wants to promote, maybe we can work together to make we both end up happy. So just think of creative ways to where you can accomplish their goals as well as yours, and not always be so much like me, and just be, again, friendly, I think is one of the best ways to get the most out of your relationships. Sharing tacos, yes.
So since they pretty much took all my thoughts, I'm going to give a tip on how to actually build a relationship. And I'm going to use Gabe here for an example. So me and Gabe have a really solid professional relationship that took a while for me to build because it was really it's really nerve-wracking trying to build a relationship. But my tip on how to actually like really build one, and what I did with Gabe, is just be yourself, and just keep talking with them. Like I remember Siege, 2 years ago or something. I basically stalked him for a little bit. I would.
He's like, this is news to me.
It all makes sense.
Like not like hardcore stalking, but if softcore stalking.
Maybe define stalking.
What I mean by stalking is kind of like how we mentioned earlier, like know where the person's going to be at, so that way you can know where they're. Okay, so for example, it's Siege. The second night of Siege, there's all the sweet parties. So someone would be like, hey, Gabe's over there. I'd be like, oh, let me go talk to Gabe. Or someone would be like, Gabe is sitting at this table during the high-res lunch. I'd be like, let me go say hi. It's not like I sat there and let me just find out where he was at all hours. It was just at random points. If I saw him, I would be like, let me go talk to him. And it would be just not long dwelling conversations. It was just brief, hey Gabe, how's it going? Nice to see you. Yeah, I just wanted to say hi, and I'm gonna go now. It's, yeah. I'm not going to say that didn't happen, but I'm kidding. But anywho, so, just being like not super like, oh my God, Gabe, I just love you, and I just, like being like actually like stalkerish, but, like acting like kind of chill about it, just being like, oh, hey, yeah, we have a network now, and just wanted to say hi, and you just keep like doing that. And then eventually it gets to, hey, let's go do this, or, eventually like it goes to like, let's go to this bar, or let's go, hey, Sarah, there's this party happening, things like that. Yeah, SWC. I did like a lot of event management stuff for SWC because of Gabe, basically. So just when it comes to building relationships, just make sure like it feels kind of weird, like when you first meet someone, you're like, hey, let's go get lunch. That can be kind of weird. So like take Siege like to the most advantage to build the relationship by just kind of trying to find out where the people you are that you want to have a relationship with, and just kind of just be like, hey, how's it going? Wanted to say hi, because then it also kind of keeps you in their mind. So that's how I did it with Gabe. I played mind games with you. I'm sorry.
I'm sure you're really happy to know, and now you're happy to know that you did not, in fact, get tagged with like a GPS tracking chip at some point at one of these Siege parties. It was in one of the tacos that she fed him. Well, and it's important too, because like what you're really doing with a situation like that is you're building a pattern where you just have lots of small, pleasant encounters. So it's just like, oh yeah, so you remember their face. Yay, you remember their face and the name. And they think of you as a generally pleasant, competent, capable person, and not one who's like, I have to tell you all about my breakup and all about this trauma of my life. It's now, hey dude, how you doing? Cool, let's talk.
She explains it better than I do.
Well, no, but that's an important thing though, because like it does take time to do that. And it's not just like every 5 minutes at Siege you have a short, pleasant encounter. It's just like, yeah, when you see somebody or if you have a chance to run into them, you have a short encounter and you respect their time, and then you give them some peace and quiet so they can continue to think of you as a pleasant person. So the thing is, like, as you keep building these relationships, over time, you end up with these massive sprawling networks of people. And I'm currently really obsessed with processes and systems and how people do things. So how do you guys manage staying in touch with a lot of people? Because it's really easy with people that you see regularly or that you run into, but especially when you say meet somebody at like GDC who you might never see again or might see in 3 years. Like, do you have like systems where you like contact one person every day, and how do you track all of that and keep so that you really continue to build and to grow your network? And I'm just kind of curious to see like how you guys handle that. Anybody?
I'll start on this. You guys want to? For me, I met a lot of people at GDC a year ago because I was part of the IGDA Scholars Program, which if any of you can apply for that, like seriously do. You get to meet like a ton of people. Like at the end of it, I had like a stack of business cards about that tall from the table up here. But for me, the best way for me to keep in contact with like those people is I actually had to kind of like pick and choose, like who do I think is the most worth, because that's way too many people to keep in contact all the time. So adding those people on LinkedIn like instantly is a good idea, because then you have them on LinkedIn, so everyone's like, oh, they know that person, even if you've only met them once. So I just kind of like picked and choose like who I like felt like I could get the most. It sounds terrible, but who I could get the most benefit from, basically. And that's kind of the game you got to play. So.
For me, so I do, it's interesting when you said you end up with these sprawling networks, and kind of when I kind of look at all the contacts that I have, it does, feel that way. The more people you talk to, the more events you go to, the bigger your list of contacts will get. And essentially what works for me is I just have lots and lots and lots of spreadsheets. Like I have spreadsheets that sometimes branch into other spreadsheets, and based on what I'm trying to achieve. So if my goal is to like get some local coverage, or if my goal is to get some coverage on YouTube, or if my goal is like, something at IGN, based on what I'm looking for, I'll consult the right people. Almost like if you think of your contacts like they're like Pokemon, and like each one is good at something, and not so good at something else. And for me, I just I consult my spreadsheets of contacts, and that way like I said, at Hi-Res, there's always something going on, so I feel like I'm always reaching out to each group in some way or form. And sometimes when we have our big events like, SWC or Hi-Res Expo, I'm reaching across all the groups because we want them all to be there, whether they're, big, small, local, not local, etc. So I would say just try to keep in mind what you want to accomplish at any particular time. And again, like if you're someone who's into audio, you want to prioritize then all the audio contacts. If you're someone who's in animation, prioritize the animation contacts. Maybe you can have an animation contact spreadsheet. But yeah, that's what works for me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fake it. I don't have a huge professional network. I have like 50 connections on LinkedIn. But what I can say is for keeping in contact with like some of my high school friends, which I haven't seen, they're out of state. I haven't seen them in like 4 or 5 years. I believe that our relationship is still very good. And one of the things that we do often, and I think you could do with a professional relationship, is just hop on a video game. Games bring people together, and just saying, hey man, you got some time this weekend? You want to play some League of Legends or whatever? Yeah, there you go, Smite. Just by doing that. Verbal communication is a great way of just maintaining relationships. You don't necessarily have to be face-to-face. So that's one of the things that I do for that.
Yeah, and I would definitely say you're going to have different levels of contacts as well. You're going to have some of those contacts that are going to be LinkedIn contacts. You have some of those that may even be like Facebook friends, Twitter follows that you're kind of just keeping up with. So there's definitely different levels of those particular contacts. Myself, when we go to conventions, there's different people that we get approached all the time. It's like, hey, I do sound, I do animation. If you ever have anything in a future game, just let me know. Or, you may have the contacts that are the YouTube people or the blog people. And again, you have them from the guy who gets 5 reads on his blog to the thousands of reads. So there's definitely a good way of kind of keeping up with that and putting that in order. But even just from a professional level, like even outside of games, I can say that I've been in 5 different jobs since I've graduated, and I would say every single job that I've gotten has been through a contact of somebody I knew. And it's been a different contact each time, but some of them have been from previous work or from school or something like that. So it's definitely an important thing to keep up with those guys, because if you got this guy you met 7 years ago and then all of a sudden you come out of the woodworks of like, hey, can you give me a job? Like, that's not going to work as well as people that you're communicating with a lot. And that's, again, finding out if they're a Facebook friend or Twitter, or LinkedIn, kind of will also let you kind of determine how often should I contact them. If I'm on Facebook, that if you're a Facebook friend, then it means, we contact a little bit more than we would if we're a LinkedIn contact. So that's just kind of one of my guides for my contacts.
I'm going to piggyback off that real quick, if that's all right. If you're doing LinkedIn, constantly post stuff, because then people will see your posts when they're on there, and then they'll remember you as well. Same thing with Facebook. If you have professional people, make sure you post, non-political, non-sex, non-religion things onto your Facebook. Or really use your filters.
Yeah, but filtering all that stuff is so much work, and I'm lazy. It's just easier to post cute puppy videos. It's just, yeah, cats are popular because you get a lot of likes for those. But so we've been talking a lot about networking and relationship building and getting to know people. So let's kind of shift focus a little bit towards one of the goals of all this, which is I'm guessing at least some of you are thinking about or planning to do some game jams in the future or want to put together teams to work on projects. So let's talk about building teams, and let's talk about some of your best team stories. So what are some of the best and the worst teams that you've been on? What made those good or bad, or what made them really tick or implode? Or again, I'm big into trauma stories. So if you have therapy bills as a result of particularly dreadful team experiences, or I'd just like to hear about team stories.
I answered first last time.
It's very true. It's very true. So personally, I've done many jams. I wasn't actually at the very first jam, but I was at the second jam. So I started at the second jam, and I've kind of been from there, whether it's been Georgia jams or the global jams or the CDC jams, all those different ones. So I've been on many, many different teams. And I would say, some of the worst experiences on teams is you get the one person on the team that has their idea, and no matter what you say, they want to build their idea. And that happens a lot. You have that person that's like, this is going to be the greatest idea, but then when you start whiteboarding it, you're just like, this really isn't a good idea, But then you get in that. But, one of the things that I always tell people, and I know I've mentored at a couple of the other jams this past couple times, but essentially when you're building your team, you want to make sure that everybody actually knows what their role is. Even if that's kind of double, like this guy can do art and coding, that's totally fine, but just understand who's going to be doing what on your team, because if not, you're going to have, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, don't lie about what you can do. You don't want to get on a team and say, oh, I'm the best artist, and then they're giving you stick figures or something. So it's definitely kind of really understanding what all the roles are, and as long as you kind of have that mapped out at the beginning, it really helps. So usually what my role ends up being is I'm the idea guy. I come up with a lot of the ideas around the games, the mechanics, and then I work really well with the programmers to make those happen, or the artists to make sure that the art's matching the theme that we have. And then the other role I always play, which some teams have, some teams don't, is just a project manager type role. So I come from a project management background, so I know our very first jam, we failed miserably because we wanted to build the biggest game and a 5-level side scroller and all of that. So we ended up with 3 levels with like barely any enemies in them because we focused so much on other things. But then after that, we just started winning, jam after jam, just because the fact that I knew that people have to sleep. I knew that you had to scale stuff down. You have to make sure you have a timeline of, all right, we're going to spend this much time on stuff. We're going to order stuff in this particular way to where when we get to the end of it, yeah, we probably have 30 more things on the whiteboard, but because we did the important stuff first, that stuff doesn't matter. We have a good game, a solid game, it works, and it looks right. So I know that's one of my biggest things is really just identifying those roles, knowing your capabilities, and kind of going from there. I won't take everything, so I'll let y'all answer.
I'm going to start off by talking about one of my worst experiences in a game jam. And before I go into that, I just want to say, don't let anybody start on any work until everybody knows exactly what the game is going to be. At least have a general idea. I mean, obviously you can make changes along the way, but what happened in this instance was we had a 7-person team, and day 2, so we had like 10 hours left, and nobody had slept. Somebody says, hey, wasn't this supposed to do this? And this was a pretty major mechanic. And the whole team of 7 people was sitting there arguing for about 2 hours. So at that point, we had 8 hours left. And so we argued and argued and argued, and by the end of it, we all hated each other. So yeah, that's my first point for avoid that kind of stuff. Now, the last 2 game jams I attended, my teams ended up winning, and I would say that there's no real secret recipe. One of the teams was a 7-person team, the other was a 3-person team, and the thing I can take away from both of those is that you can know that you have a successful team when there isn't too much communication, and by that I mean you don't have to go back and ask all of your team members what something was supposed to do over and over again. Everybody kind of knows. Within the first 2 hours of the jam, the idea is fleshed out. And decisions are made quickly, conflicts get resolved quickly, and that was the case with both of those game jams. So when it comes to actually finding your team, that's a little bit more difficult, especially we all know approaching people for the first time is not very easy. But I can say if you do art, then you're not going to have a problem finding a team because everybody loves artists. But don't lie, because that happened to us too. Yeah, this guy said he was a great artist, and no. If you're a programmer, it's a little bit harder, I guess, to get on a team because there's so many programmers, especially if you're at a game jam here. So if you don't have a lot of experience, don't pretend that you do. A lot of people are really nice at game jam, and they know there's probably going to be some minor stuff that somebody with little experience can help on. So don't lie about your experience. You can find a team. That's not going to be a problem. So that's all I have.
I guess I can't really think of any particular instance where I was working with a team and everything went just horrifically wrong and it crashed and burned. I kind of want to say that like working like at least the events that I've been involved with at High Res, it's been a sort of like a slow progress. Like each time we do an event or each time we do a project, we always, it comes out, good, but we always find out ways that we can do it better. And so like, our launch tournament was at center stage. It was pretty successful, but at the same time, there's a lot of ways we could have made it better. The next tournament we did was at the Cobb Energy Center, which was a lot better. And then the year after that, we fixed the other few things. And so it's kind of like a gradual moving forward, slowly and carefully and precisely. And being in PR, I get to work with several of the teams at High Res. So if we're doing like behind the scenes stuff or interviews for a particular, article for a particular section of the company, I might get to work with the animators, or I might get to work with like one of the programmers or whatnot. So work with a lot of different teams. It's always, pretty good. Like I said, never perfect, but we work towards that, particularly with the team that I work with. So I'm the only internal PR guy, but we have external teams that we use to essentially reciprocate our communications across Europe and Oceania, which is, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but basically Australia, New Zealand. So I kind of feel like the biggest thing for me is communication. Specifically, just like we'll get our marching orders from management, and then it's up to me to make sure that everyone else, over in the Europe team and over in the Australian team know exactly what it is that they need to communicate at what times, because time zones are all different. When do the embargoes lift at different times? Which outlets are we talking to specifically? When are we okay to send certain stuff? So I kind of want to say, I guess it's not really answering the question as far as like giving a specific example, but if you want to avoid horrific disasters, just make sure to talk to people, talk to your teammates, make sure everyone knows what's going on. Don't hesitate to send people updates or to express concerns, because when there's no communication, then things get disjointed and stuff goes out when it's not supposed to, or people say things they're not supposed to, and then you have to do a bunch of backtracking, and that's never fun. So, yes.
All right, so my best example of good teamwork is actually with Tripwire, working on Killing Floor 2. Currently in early access. And I'm not just saying that just as a plug, but in all honesty, like working at Tripwire has probably been some of the best team building. Not necessarily team building because they already have a pretty solid team, but just some things that I've learned just from being there is that will probably be useful for you guys when building a team for Game Jam or trying to build a team to actually build like a game that you want to put out there. Make sure everybody's involved with the design. I know that might seem like a little counterproductive, but Tripwire listens to everybody's feedback, and it makes everyone in the teams feel like they're important. And that's the biggest thing, is make sure everyone feels like what they're doing is important and what they're saying is listened to. And also, try to work out with hours and times that work best for them. I really like Tripwire, the way they do it. We basically choose our own hours, but we just have to be at the studio between 10 and 4. Besides that, we can come in at 10 or we can come in however early and leave at 4. So, just kind of try to find, cater how you build your team based off around them, not based around how you want it. So work with your team, not make them work for you. And then as for a terrible team, it was, I'm not going to name, but basically just there was no communication. Communication's so important. And then I ended up getting in lots of trouble because I was not told what was happening, and it was crash and burn, and it was great. And I cried, and it was great. They didn't buy me tacos, that was the problem. So I destroyed everything, normal stuff. But just make sure that you communicate and you really listen to what they're saying.
Well, and I'm really glad that you brought up listening, because, you can talk and talk, or I can talk and talk all day, but occasionally, I do have to shut up and listen to what people are actually saying, and try to, and not just listen to what they're saying, but also try to actually hear what their real issues are, because some people are more or less self-aware or good at communicating what is really on their mind. It's if I get mad at Sarah because there are no tacos, am I really mad because of the tacos, or because it's like a pattern and she never thinks to order the tacos when I'm hungry? Or is it just a personality conflict? And there's so many things that could be going on other than the surface issues of tacos or lack thereof, even though the tacos are inherently important, as we have beaten to death with the taco on that one. So people are inherently really weird. We are weird, twisted, inconsistent things. And when you're building a team, like, we've talked about communication, but the thing is, like, different people communicate differently. Like, some people really want just like, okay, here's the solution, let's talk about why that's the best solution. Or here's like, oh, I want to talk to you about the problem, here's the solution. And there's so many different ways of communicating. Some people are just like feelings oriented, some people are like, give me just the strict linear fact of what's going on. So when you're in a team situation, how do you compensate for some of those communication style differences? Because that's not something that is always an easy thing to work through. So I'm just kind of curious about what some of your favorite tactics are for just adjusting communication styles so that to maximize communication on teams. Anybody down the table?
Sure, I guess I'll go first.
We're mixing up our order.
Yeah, so on one of our teams, we had 7 people, and during our brainstorm session, basically there were 3 of us who were spitting out ideas, and the other 4 were just kind of like sitting there. The deal was 3 of us knew each other, and the other 4 were new. And that's one of the things you have to consider is if you're with some friends and you're with some people who are new, you have to be sure to include them because you and your buddies have all your inside jokes. It's really easy to talk to them, and you don't realize how easy it is to exclude people who are new. So one of the things we always make sure we do is go around the room, say anything to add. If they don't say anything, there's nothing we can really do. So what I'll say is if you find yourself clutched up because you're too nervous, I hate to say it, but just get over it. Because especially when people are asking for your advice or your input, you just have to speak up. And once you break through that barrier, I guess, that social barrier that you might have, it just gets easier. Because you'll find that most people, and especially in the beginning when you're brainstorming, everybody has stupid ideas. And a lot of the times, good ideas arise from stupid ones. So, yeah, I think that's all I have on that.
So one thing you mentioned when you were asking the question was just about people having different personalities. And so actually at my current job, again, not game related, but at my current job, when we were being onboarded, one of the things we looked at was personalities of people. And we took a personality test and all of this, and it kind of broke everybody down into like 4 different colors. But then you had a subcolor and all of that. But essentially it was very interesting to kind of find out that there's people that are more people-oriented people. They're the people that want to make sure everybody's happy on the team and make sure everything's going good. You have people that are more of the problem solvers. So they're already trying to think of, you've already talked about the theme, and they're like, I want to build this particular mechanic, and they kind of want to go through that. You have people that are very task-oriented. So they're already making the list of all the different assets you're going to need, all the different pieces of code you're going to need, as well as the other person that's just trying to think of the idea that nobody's going to think of, the person that's like, I'm going to build WoW during this, game jam, and it's not going to happen, but they still want to do it. So, it is very interesting when you mention that because there is that on the team, and I know that when we're at these jams, there are a lot of people because, especially here at what was Southern Poly, since I'm a Southern Poly graduate, but now KSU. We have a lot of computer-related people, which a lot of people have the same types of personalities. So a lot of the times when you get on these teams, you do have people that have very similar personalities that connect really easily. They can start working, they get along nicely, and then you have a few of the other guys that kind of, like you were saying, kind of are on the outside. So it's definitely kind of a good thing to be making sure everybody's involved, making sure everybody really does have a piece of the game, because if they don't, then day 2, day 3, they're going to be the guys that are like, hey, I'm going to go outside, and you don't see them for 2 hours because they just don't feel like they're part of the team or the game because the idea they threw out kind of got washed away and then they didn't get another chance to speak about stuff. So it's definitely one of those that it is tough when putting together that team, but by kind of identifying early on maybe what some of those personalities are, it's very easy to say, okay, how about while we're doing this list, why don't you take the notes on it, because that guy's the one that wants to be, making the list and stuff. So.
I guess from my experience, I think that one of the best ways to deal with just different types of people, again, it's just communication, but also just like patience, a lot of patience, and just kind of like, I don't know if saturation is the right word, but you just need to spend a lot of time with those people if they're a meaningful part of your team. For example, like I said, I work with external teams, a bunch of people in Europe and a bunch of people in Australia. And a lot of times, seeing as how, I'm the one actually at high-res and I deal with a lot of the people actually making decisions on a day-to-day, I have a better idea of what actually is going on and kind of like what our guys want to get done. And so I'm just more likely to understand when these tasks come through. But our other teams might actually, not understand so well. They might have some ideas. We're like, well, what if we did it this way? Or what if we sent it out at this time? Or what if we left out this part and added this? Or what if we, instead of giving 10 codes, what if we gave 50,000 codes? And you're just like, oh, well, maybe not that much. And so there's a lot of just differences in ideas that come across, and you just got to make sure that you're not going to just shut people out or just shut down any ideas that come across, but try to explain in the best way you can why the goal is what it is and how you think that the best way to go about doing it is. So I would say just definitely try to hear other people's opinion, take them into account, and again, just stay up to date and communicate with everybody. And that's what works for us so far. And yeah.
You took my thing. It's okay, I came up with another one. I think another thing to remember is I'm not necessarily thinking game jam because I never did game jams. I'm thinking building indie games and stuff. So just so you guys know where my mind is. But sometimes it's important to make sure you know the person before you bring them onto your team, because sometimes personalities just aren't going to mesh. It doesn't mean either of you are wrong. It doesn't mean either of you are terrible people. It's just life. And I think it's important that you make sure you interview the person that you're going to bring on your team. That doesn't necessarily work as much for game jam because you don't have a lot of time. You just got to get your team and go. But if you're looking to actually create a studio, you might want to actually stop and talk to the person and make sure that they are passionate about the same things that you are and what same game styles. So you don't want someone who wants to build an MMO RPG building a side-scrolling platform because they're not passionate about that. So, just make sure you guys are on the same boat.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to build your own studio, for God's sake, take it slow. Do your homework. Get to know people. Don't just say, "Yeah, we're going to do this thing." I don't know who you are, but we're going to do this thing. It'll be great. So we're just about at 8. So I think we have a couple of minutes for some questions. If anybody has questions, comments, offers of tacos, etc. So, or not, because we're also happy just to say, "Yeah, everyone's been sitting here for an hour." No. Sure, Andrew, what's your question?
So, what tools do you like to use for keeping the team notified, working kind of the project management tools? If it's Google Docs and spreadsheets, how do you use them to keep the team notified? You're constantly pushing out notifications, or you have some people constantly go up there. What are your best team tools, especially during jam, as well as outside?
The question is, what are your favorite team management tools?
I personally like Jira. Jira, Jira. That's what we use at Tripwire, and I've really grown to love it. It's easy to assign tasks and get bug reports in and get it sent to the right person who was supposed to be taking care of that task if there's a bug related to it. And also just another good, it's not necessarily a tool, but still something you should do, stand-up meetings. The quick 15-minute meetings, just a quick, this is what everyone's supposed to be doing. Are we on track? Cool. Let's keep going. So that's what.
Yeah, there's a variety of systems that I think a lot of the... Oh, was there another question? Oh. Okay, well, there's a variety of tools that get used at high res. So me particularly, I mostly do a lot of my work in Google Docs, but I know there's also like the marketing team uses a lot of like, JSON, Tableau, Asana, to name a few. But I think it's like each team will kind of have a system that works best for them. But those are the few that has seemed to work well for us.
Yeah, if your team members have experience, GitHub is obviously a great tool because the alternative would be sharing the project in Dropbox or something, and then it takes 45 minutes for it to download, and you have to integrate everything. So if you know any sort of source control, and if you don't know source control, then definitely learn it before Game Jam, because it's, like I said, it's a huge time saver. And then another tool is whiteboards. We typically list out all of our tasks on whiteboards, and then we'll cross it off like a huge victory, just like scribble it out, and then everybody's happy about that. So that's also good for team building, and everybody feels like they're included.
Yeah, and for Game Jam specifically, another good thing, I know you had mentioned GitHub. If you don't have that, Dropbox is definitely a good tool that's there, especially with the fact that a lot of these buildings, the power goes out all the time. So if you're not constantly saving your code, you may wake up, sometime Saturday afternoon, and you may not have a game anymore because somebody didn't save what they've been doing for 5 or 6 hours. So definitely save often with those kind of things. We've used Trello before to kind of keeping up with just a list of things that need to be completed, as well as whiteboards if you can actually get one in one of the rooms, or some of them that are portable, or even just basic paper and pencil. I know myself, I like to do that, kind of to your point of being able to actually see you physically cross things off and see how many things you've completed. Will make the team feel encouraged when you're getting to the late Saturday and the game doesn't necessarily look exactly what you want, but you can show all the different things that you've accomplished through the time.
And I would add to that the tool to never ever use is Facebook chat. Just seriously, don't do it. My single worst planning incident happened because we were this friend of mine insisted, oh no, we'll just do it. We talk all the time on Facebook anyway. We'll just keep asking questions there, and it was awful. So don't do that. Yeah, you also can potentially run into some funky IP issues as well with that. So other questions, or is that the question? Okay.
Rodrigo from the YouTube chat would like to know, how would you handle developing a reputation at a conference that leads to a name like Awkward Guy?
The question is, how do you build a really awesome reputation at a conference?
Why don't we let Stalker
First off, it's Taco Stalker Girl. Let's get that right. All right.
That's how she gets it.
That's. Okay. A good way to get a reputation at a conference is a good reputation is not be me. And I think the way I got my once was good reputation was just by being around, talking to different people, we said prioritize your targets, but you also want to be free as well, have free times where you're just welcoming people to talk to you. Don't ever turn someone down for a conversation unless you're I have to go to the bathroom. I gotta find Gabe. I'm sorry, I had to. I saw an opportunity.
You seize opportunities.
Yes. So just doing panels, making sure you ask questions at these panels, because then it kind of helps people recognize your face. Just mainly just talking to people, doing your normal network will really help you get your name out there as well. And getting involved as well, getting involved with GGDA, IGDA, starting your own organization, getting involved on campus, or anywhere else also really helps.
Yeah, I think to way to get noticed at cons in a good way is just to, again, talk to people, be, personable, be nice, be yourself, meet the people that you want to meet. Also, be very active social media. If you have a Twitter or a YouTube channel or Facebook page, shoot out what you're doing. Be like, hey, I'm at such and such place, met so and so. Tweet that stuff out, make a social imprint. Also, just be willing to, if there's people that want to come talk to you, be willing to talk to them, be willing to take the time it takes to talk to them. A lot of the big influencers, if you ever see them at conventions, they'll sit at these meet and greets for hours, and they'll actually sit and meet every single fan until the line's done, even if it's taking up just tons and tons of their time, because they don't want to be seen as oh, we're too popular to talk to this last 20 fans because our time's up. They will actually go the extra mile to make sure that everyone leaves there being I got to meet my favorite person and he signed my t-shirt, whatever. So just be personable and be willing to put in the time.
What they said.
Yeah, and I think the question was how to not be that awkward person. If they sign something, don't go get it tattooed on you. That's kind of awkward. But definitely, it's just kind of know what you want to say. I would say the most awkward thing is when somebody comes up and they're just like, hi, I like your game. And then they kind of stand there, because that's really awkward.
And I think it's also important to recognize that building a reputation, and just like building relationships, is a process. It almost never happens overnight. I mean, it takes time, it takes consistent effort, it takes actually going out to multiple events, not just one big conference and saying, yes, I am here, you can celebrate now, the world is better because I am here. Because that also falls into the ego trap that Sarah pointed out earlier, I think. So other questions? Joe?
Not a question, I just want to add that. Learn how to be useful. I had 2 people this year that actually now work for me part-time, and they made that happen. I've been looking for about 3 years, subtly, but I found the right 2 people, they actually found me, and it's because of their qualities of being useful and then making that use known. So.
The more useful you can be to someone else, the more likely they are to want to help you out. It's building relationships. Right behind you.
One of you said at game jams that you worked as a designer and project manager. I'm just wondering how when you're forming a team, how do you present that to people as a viable position, and what do you spend a majority of your time doing during a jam?
That was me. Okay, so the question is, like I had mentioned earlier, I do a lot of the idea guy and the project management side of things, and the question really is, when you're at these jams, how do you sell that? Because a lot of people are looking for a programmer, an artist, or sound guy. They don't ever think about a project manager, and or when they hear it's just a guy who knows ideas, they're just like, it's fine, we don't need a guy, we can come up with our own. I would say I've only had to do it once, which was the very first jam, sell myself and pretty much say I can't really do much except for give you ideas. But it was definitely one of those that I found a team with one good developer and one artist. We were a small team our very first jam. And I think the biggest thing is just to be able to show how much you can contribute. If you have any kind of background in that, just be like, hey, I've got some experience managing particular projects, time frames. A jam is really crazy with 48 hours. That's really more like, 28 to 30 hours when you figure you need to sleep, you need to eat, things like that. And by kind of presenting that, it definitely helps. And then I would say if you're going to say you're an idea guy, just make sure when you're coming up with the ideas, they're good ideas. I know it's very difficult with coming up ideas, especially with some of our themes are just way out there and they're hard to come up with stuff. But one thing that I've always made sure I do is whenever we get a theme, there's always the first idea that pops in your head. but you have to understand that at least 50% of the other teams had that exact same idea. So try to do something a little bit different. You know, Default Dan came out of a jam where the theme was Eye of the Beholder. And so with that particular theme, we knew everybody was going to say, all right, well, if I'm this character, the world's going to have a wall, but I can switch to another character or whatever, and the wall's no longer there. So we just kind of took that and said, all right, well, half the teams are going to do that, so let's just do something where, you know, a coin kills you and spikes make you bounce. So you have to completely retrain your mind in the fact that what one person sees as good, another person sees as bad. So I would definitely just say if you're going to go down that route of just really making sure you have those kind of out of the box, and once you do that once, the teams will just keep coming back because they're like, hey, this guy's got ideas and this guy can, you know, keep everything on track. And since then, we've worked with the same core team, and kind of like how we've all been talking about forming teams. Every single jam, we always try to pick up 2 new people, you know, on the team. So some people drop off, some people add. I think our team's around 5 or 6 people now, but every jam we always try to pick up one person. And, you know, some of the people from our teams have gone on to form new teams that have been really good, like the team with Colton that built Home and Provision. So again, we did a jam a while back with them, and then after a couple jams, we all decided, all right, our team is just too many people going on. Let's try to break up into 2 teams and see where we can go from there and pushing ourselves. And I know that's how we've also pushed ourselves a lot, is, you know, battling the teams that we kind of semi-created at some point. So.
Yeah, I love your point of basically needing to triage your own bright ideas to see which ones are actually worth pursuing. I mean, it's kind of like when you make pancakes and the first one might suck or it might be perfectly edible, but being prepared to sacrifice that first pancake or 2. No, it's not sacrilege at all. But anyway, more questions? Or is everybody just ready to like stand up and move around and actually talk to people? Since we've been talking about how you should all talk to people more, so. Cool. Well, with that, like, thank you guys for coming out, and yay, let's talk to people.